Vincenzo?
DiVincenzo was leading, yeah,
Right.
by 2 strokes.
Right.
And Dave Stockton ended up winning. And he was, his downfall was number 7, DiVincenzo.
Tell me about that, because I've heard that he took a horrendous number, and I have people coming here, and when we get to this hole, and you look at it, I said, DiVincenzo lost the tournament on this hole.
Absolutely. Well, he was playing with Dave Stockton in the last group, and in fact, Stockton was such a wonderful putter. This is right up his alley, small greens and so on, and he was a straight hitter. Mm-hmm. You have to be a straight hitter that week particularly because they narrowed the fairways. They were narrow enough as it was.
Right.
They recessed the cut so that if you got your ball nudged up against you had to use a wedge just to get it back in play. That's as easy it was.
Wow.
So it ended up, it was such a key event that, as well as in '66, the PGA, the field supervisor, George Walsh, would come, he would go out a week or 2 before the tournament in each place. He would set the pins. Well, he set the pins in places that were so accessible, particularly because it was playing so easily. And that was one of the conditions that, if Chuck remembers, that we had that Green Committee meeting with Sendelar and Corporal, Tom Ferry, and all those instrumental people, and said, we are going to set the pins for this tournament. And they wanted it so badly they had to give in. You know, they had to accede to that. So I said, well, yeah, we know where the pins should be on each given day and the conditions. How would this guy know? And he left town the week before.
Right, right.
So anyway, it was really a difficult golf course. Yeah. So Trevino, when he finished on, he had just won the Open on a tough golf course, Oak Hill in Rochester. And so he played Wednesday in the Pro-Am, and he came in, he threw his hat on the ground in the pro shop, and he says, God damn, bro, I shouldn't say that, but he says, I thought that course I won the U.S. Open was tough. This son of a bitch is tougher than that. That's what he said.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
He said, because it's a harder driving course.
Yeah. Right. You have to keep it.
And he was one of the straightest drivers of all. He didn't play well here because he had so many other things happening after his first U.S. Open win. But a nice guy, wonderful guy. And there are a lot of good stories about both of those tournaments. And Gary Player was one of them. He played a practice round right after Julius and Jack McGowan and I played. And Julius could play a golf course the first time better than anyone I've ever heard of other than Hogan and Nicklaus. And managing it. Mm-hmm. He could see it. Where you want to be on this hole? With no one, he said, I don't want to hear anything. I want to figure it out myself. Okay. So it was amazing. And then Player came in, and he just won the British Open the year before. And he came in, he was always looking for clubs. So the bag room at that time, for the first time in '66, we asked the members to take their clubs and we put them in their locker and locked them.
Right.
Okay. And so the bag room was void. And the pros hadn't come in to register on Monday yet, all of them. So we assigned them different order of racks in the bag room. And H row was the farthest row to the south, and that's where we kept some extra supplies and my extra clubs. And so I had a couple of sets of Hogans in my rack. So before you know it, Gary Player came running up. He says, I found it. God, I found the set I've been looking for years. And he said, could I hit these? And they were my old set.
The whole set?
Yeah. So he went over and hit some balls at the range, and it was late. And he came in and he says, I've got to have these clubs. He says, how much are they? I said, well, they're not worth much. I mean, he said, no, I'm serious. He had to play Slazenger clubs in the continent, outside the U.S.
Right.
But he wanted a set of clubs, and he played the Black Knight Shakespeare clubs in this country, the first graphite shafts, kind of fiberglass actually. He said, I've got to have a set that I can use overseas. This is it. So he filed Hogan's name off of it. And he signed the check and he said, fill it in yourself. I don't care what it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
You really wanted him.
Yes, well,
Yeah, that's all
you were
right.
successful, I'm sure, after that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
But the '68 Open was very unique because of the pros were very upset with the setup because they hadn't played a course this hard. The run-of-the-mill pros, not, you know, the touring pros who didn't qualify for the Open, that kind of thing. They just didn't play courses that difficult.
Now, were the conditions perfect? Now, did we have a sprinkling system at that point on 68?
No, but luckily it was a cool spring and a wet spring and a wet June. I mean, the growth was fantastic. The rough was about 5 inches, and Chuck made sure that if you missed the fairway, you were going to pay a penalty. He said, well, that's the way this game was designed, which it is. And but they didn't really complain a lot, the pros. You know, they thought it was great because the best player is going to win without a doubt, not just the best putter.
Right. Did they know that Tillinghast had designed this course? I would
Yeah.
assume so.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but this was the last course that he designed east of Mississippi, and the only one in Ohio.
Right.
None in Indiana, or rather in Indiana or Illinois. In fact, he actually kind of designed this one, as I understand it, in absentia almost. You know, he just happened to be going through one time, and
Yeah, he stopped there a couple times.
yeah.
He was doing work at maybe Mayfield or
Yeah.
or Canterbury.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a renovation, and he was on the train, and he took the trolley out here, and this was formed by a group of Masons from the city of Lakewood, called Lakewood Country Club, and they end up they had 1,500 members when they first when they first started.
Whoa.
There are pictures that Stouffer had seen of the first meeting. It was a Sunday, like a picnic.
Right.
They didn't have a clubhouse or a golf course,
Right.
but it was out here near where the parking lot would be.
Right.
And but he said, "This is going to be a good spot for a golf course." You know, he could see it, he could visualize.
Yeah. You could see the terrain and then.
Oh yeah, and
Like any place else he went to.
it just really farmland. The original course, that as I saw it, it was very bare. You know, if you see those old pictures, if you know you have them, and how they planted the trees in certain order on 15, between 14 and 15,
Yeah.
and then the natural old elms that were strategically placed different places.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they died, but.
And I know that we saw some pictures on 14 and 15 where they're in a row.
Right.
And who was it? It was Randy Palmer said he remembered when they were planting those, they were 1-inch diameter twigs.
Yeah.
You know,
And he's Mr. Stouffer, one time when we were talking, and he said, well, they were talking about bringing someone else in, consulting or some other pro or architect, and he didn't like that. He wanted to stick to the old traditional Tillinghast concept, you know, and the traditionalists, and so I said, okay, but eventually everything changes, and I had kind of put him down a little bit, unfortunately, in that I said, well, I've read a little bit about Tillinghast and somewhat about his history, and he was quite a ladies' man. He was a raconteur in New York's Broadway, in that group. He's big in the theatrical world, but he was a brilliant guy. I mean, luckily he had good genes, or lucky genes, because he inherited a lot of money.
Right.
He didn't have to design golf courses for a living.
Right.
And so he ended up with, as a young man in his 20s, he was a ne'er-do-well. He spent 4 or 5 years in touring England, Scotland, and Ireland, just playing golf and getting drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the unique part was that he was a good player, but he was not a good driver, tee shot player.
Oh, is that right?
You know, and he saw all those courses where you had to hit the ball in the fairway, and that's what killed him in his game. So he said, "Well, I'm going to do something about that." The unique part about all of his courses is simply, you have to drive the ball straight, as compared to a lot of other, even Donald Ross courses.
Yeah, right.
So that Wingfoot's a good example, and Baltusrol, and Five Farms, and so on, and Ridgewood. Ridgewood, you have did it really straight there. And other New Jersey courses all around New York City. His premium was Westchester County and New Jersey, bordering New York City. He didn't like to leave the city too much. So Stouffer said, "Well, we're going to keep this name in forefront." And I said, "Well, you know, all he was just a drunk." What? I said, "Yeah," but he was a very well educated man and well spoken. But he's Johnson, and then he got tired of New York City and went to California.
Mm-hmm.
And in the San Francisco Golf Club and Olympic, and a couple others that the Hollywood crowd wanted to design. Yeah, so he would. His name was. He didn't like his first name, Alfred. He liked A.W.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the initials.
Right.
Yeah.
Sounded more
Yeah.
upscale. That sounds interesting.
And at first, Chuck didn't like the greens as he found them when he came here in '61 or '2 or something like that.
Okay.
They were called mud greens.
Right. I remember people talking about it.
But Chuck did. He said they were harder because they, and he'll tell you that about the drainage problem.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And
Always
always had a drainage problem, and that was kind of typical of Tillinghast's courses. Except, you know, at Wingfoot they're they had more room to work with and bigger area. They're much more contoured. So is Baltusrol and so on. But given this, I called this club his jewel of the Midwest, Lakewood Country Club, is Tillinghast. But it's just always been a good test.
Still is.
Yeah, even when when it was shorter, you know, the fairway traps all the way across number 2, all the way across, big, wide, expansive
Across
bunkers.
from left to right?
Yeah.
And number 2?
2.
Number 2 here now?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 13. There was a bunkers. Well, they had chocolate drops on 9
Right.
and 6. And it was a little different course as I saw it. And what I thought was unique was his bunkering, Tillinghast,
Mm-hmm.
rather than the greens. He didn't have much to work with the greens. But the routing and number 7 is the key hole on the golf course, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, sure.
well, DiVincenzo made that mistake. He used the driver.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he hit it in the creek on 7.
Okay.
And the argument was that which side to drop on. It was a lot of trees in there then. A lot of it were blocking any kind of a shot to the green.
That's a
Lateral hazard, yeah.
You can go on either side.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So what
But-
did he do then?
Well, he opted to go. You had to take a 2 club length drop on either side, no near the hole. Okay,
Right.
from the point at last across the margin, and or you go back to the tee.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he had no shot either side, even dropping left of it or right. He couldn't get a wedge up. He couldn't hit anything. So he decided it would be simpler to go back to the tee, which it really was a proper thing, and shooting 3, except he had a driver again.
Again?
Yeah. And hit it in the rough, and he couldn't. He's lucky to make 6, or maybe a 7. I don't remember. It was a bad decision, and I think Stockton birdied the hole. It was a big swing.
Oh boy.
So it was that's the key hole on this course is that you had to hit it in the fairway. Period.
You still do.
Yeah.
It slopes to the right.
Because that was the smallest green on the course.
Right, and if you're on the backside bunker.
Yeah, no chance. Yeah. Yeah, that was. But
So 2 times was enough for the membership to host the Open, or?
They ran out of actually sponsors. Yeah. They ended up in '69 going to Tanglewood, which was a new course then. It was real rough. None of the pros liked it, and it wasn't well attended. And he wanted to come back here, but the membership had enough.
Right.
You know, you think of taking a week, and actually a little more of a imposition on the membership, just the preparation weeks ahead. You got to grow the rough.
Yeah, and people don't like the
No.
that play.
And so on. And they turned it down, and they went to Tanglewood, and then they went to Aurora. I think that was it, the end of it, 1970. They never had another Cleveland Open. They lost their sponsors.
Yeah, Carling's was a big sponsor, I remember.
Yeah,
And same thing with the PGA with Canterbury.
that's right.
The championship.
Yeah, there was talk about having the a senior tournament here when the senior tour got started, but that never got off the ground. That would have been a good event.
Let me go back to when you were hired here. You had that discussion of how you were introduced to the people and they brought you up here, and you looked at it. When you got here, what was your first impressions? Because, of course, you've never seen the golf course. And,
Well, actually, it was middle of January.
Okay.
I
Couldn't have been a good impression.
No, well, I'd never been in snow, and I didn't have any wool clothes. Anyway, I stayed at this motel near the airport. I flew in. I talked to Mr. Sindelar, and he said we're having interviews this particular week, and it was a kind of a snowstorm, but I got a cab out here, and we had a long meeting in the boardroom, which was kind of small, but then we ended up. He said we're going to whittle this down to 3 people, and we'll call you later. Okay. So a couple of weeks passed. I didn't pay any attention to it. Actually, I didn't. What didn't mean a lot because I had a job, and I was prepared to stay if I had to. I had never made an application for any other job. I was hired every job I ever had. I was hired on the phone.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and I had no resume per se.
Right.
So I made one up for him. He decided I needed a little background. I did, and so I was teaching one morning in February. It was early February, 2 or 3 weeks later. He said, I think it would be a good idea for you to come back up. You're one of our last 3 interviewees. And I said, well, I don't have the money to go up there. It was to fly. And he said, well, the board decided they're not going to underwrite any expenses for the. I said, well, in that case, I'm not going. I'm not interested. I just flat turned him down.
Yeah.
He said, well, let me just